A lot of people think that the biggest danger for their children is lurking behind a 7-Eleven store in a black alley. No, the biggest danger for your children is in their backpack, is in their back pocket. It's their cell phone. Predators from around the world use technology to prey on your children. I recognized after 10 years of doing undercover work in the darkest places of humanity, I recognized that the common thread with traffickers wasn't earrings in their noses and tattoos on their necks. The common thread was arrogance and greed and lust and unhealed personal childhood trauma. And I recognize that a lot of the problems that we're having in the world today come from
Welcome back to Mic'd Up. I'm your host, Mike DiCioccio, and our guest today is a man who has dedicated his life to fighting one of the darkest crimes on earth, child trafficking. You may know him as an executive producer of the box office hit Sound of Freedom, the film that sparked a global conversation and widespread awareness on this topic. But what many people don't realize, or maybe they don't realize, is that much of the story behind the film is very real. He has participated in more than 70 undercover rescue missions across 15 countries, and he's also the founder of the Child Liberation Foundation. Today, we're going to be talking about what has happened since the film was released nearly 3 years ago, what people still might not know or understand about trafficking, and how we can all play a role in protecting children. Welcome back to the show, Paul Hutchinson.
Thanks, Mike. Super grateful to be back here with your audience today.
Thank you, my man. I know you got a lot going on. In the last 2.5 years, a lot has happened. Trafficking has unfortunately come up more in the United States. Off camera, we were talking about the Epstein Files that are now out. Only, I think, 3% as we do this recording are still out, and that's like thousands of files, right? Horrific things are being discovered in this country, but obviously Sound of Freedom talked about very real stories that you were a part of firsthand. And anyone who wants to know more about maybe the film, first of all, I said this last time too, if you haven't seen the film, please see it. And then I would recommend coming back to the interview because we're going to talk about a lot of stuff that's in the film that I think it would be good for you to see first. Our first conversation, Paul, 2.5 years ago, talked a lot about the film. I want to make this a step 2 to that or 2.0 conversation to that. What now in the last 2.5 years has come out, maybe, I know Liberating Humanity, I'm going to have your website and social linked up for everybody in the show notes. But from your vantage point, what has actually changed in the fight against trafficking since the film came out? And what can you tell us about the positive impact that's happened after the film came out?
Well, it's been tremendous, tremendous, tremendous. For 10 years of leading undercover missions and being a part of these foundations, we rescued more than 7,000 children who are now back with their families. However, in the last few years alone, through the leadership of my wife, the Child Liberation Foundation is helping more than 10,000 children a month in preventing them from being trafficked. We have foundations that we fund that have teams on the ground on different border areas that are high-risk trafficking areas that know what to look for. We have certification programs for doctors, for people working in hospitality and hotels and in law enforcement, et cetera, that because of the fact that I've been in the darkness and our team has seen really what trafficking looks like, we can help people understand it. We just recently took down one of the largest child trafficking rings between Ecuador and Peru because of the fact that a doctor knew what to look for. And he called our foundation, and our inner guys that were working the government there gave us a call. My wife went in, talked to the little girl who had been abused, and sure enough, she was being trafficked. She was in Peru. She had been taken by these guys. At 8 years old, her mother died. Her father was an alcoholic. She had gone to live with her uncle, and Pretty soon, the uncle was raping her, horrible things. The traffickers got a hold of her. She didn't really have anywhere to go, and took her from Ecuador to Peru, and then said, "You're going to be earning $1,000 a day, otherwise you get beat up." This little girl, and sadly, she didn't earn it and got beat up, and then that's when we were called and took down the operation. So
And you were able to
it's
rescue her and many more
many,
and
many, many more.
caught in time. And something that makes me think of is, awareness is great. Okay, conversations like this one are great. People need to be thinking about it, talking about it, and what we really want to do, at least my vision for this conversation, is to help people all across the globe. But I know most of my audience is a lot of U.S. based, but prevention, right? Prevention. So how can we prevent these things from happening early on? Now, I don't know in other countries. Like, I've seen horrible videos, and some of them were in the movie Sound of Freedom. There was kind of like a montage that shows people on like mopeds pulling up to kids that their parents are walking them, and there's two kids, and mom's holding the little boy's hand, and the girl's 3 feet away, and someone pulls up on a moped, steals the girl, and drives off. Or a lot of times it's the boys too, drive off, and they can't find them, and then that's it, right? So how do we talk about prevention, maybe that situation where it's literally like physically being aware, but also in the States today, social media, video games, a lot of kids are online gaming. Like, what can we do from a prevention standpoint as parents? And if you're not a parent tuning in, how can you help as well? I want people to be thinking about it that way.
Absolutely. And so many people will leave the movie Sound of Freedom, and they'll say, "Oh, I want to do something. They're motivated. I want to go rescue kids." The worst thing you can do is try to go undercover in Mexico. You're going to get shot. You're probably going to get arrested. And the best thing you can do is go home and hug your children. People are
Mhm.
like, "Well, how does that help?" Well, the children who were taken, who are moved to other places, they don't come from healthy families. They're usually coming from broken homes, runaways, a broken foster care program. So the more you can do to hold your nuclear family together, the better. In addition to that, you can't be with you don't want to be a helicopter mom, a helicopter dad. You can't be with your kids always. And so teaching them some skills in all the undercover missions that I did, the most valuable skills we had were not our hard skills. It wasn't our Krav Maga, wasn't our ability to handle a weapon. The most valuable skills we had was situational awareness. In fact, one of our top trainers in the world is named Steve Turan. He's a close friend of mine, and he does situational. He's one of the top edged weapons trainers in the world, one of the top improvised weapons trainers, and one of the top situational awareness trainers. He trains the CIA, FBI, Secret Service, and others. And he teaches that if you ever have to get to the point where you have to use hard skills, you've got to go to punching or whatever. If the child is taken, if anybody gets to that point, they have missed 95 to 99% of the opportunities to avoid that situation in the first place. And so in the book Sound of Freedom, which is on
Mhm.
Amazon right now, there's a lot of information that parents can use to keep their kids safe. The whole first section on creating an undercover operator gives the things that we learn to look for these kind of things, the skills we learn to keep ourselves safe, the situational awareness skills, etc. Now, beyond that, and this is super important, a lot of people think that the biggest danger for their children is lurking behind a 7-Eleven store in a black alley. No,
Mhm.
the biggest danger for your children is in their backpack, is in their back pocket. It's their cell phone.
Mhm.
Predators from around the world use technology to prey on your children. In fact, the FBI has stated that one of the most dangerous things for our children nowadays is something called sextortion, where your child is playing on an online video game, and uh, and all of a sudden somebody makes friends with them, maybe somebody from another sex, and your 14-year-old boy thinks that he's chatting with a 13-year-old girl, and
Right.
she sends some pictures and asks for some back, and then asks for some more videos, and then says, "Okay, these are going all over your school, and unless you give us some money or unless you come to this meeting place." That's probably not a 13-year-old girl. It's a 45-year-old dude,
Yeah.
and that is identified your child as a victim. And
Right.
so, we can go on and on about the deeper things of how you can keep your kids safe, but The truth is, 1 out of every 4 girls, 1 out of every 4 are abused sexually as children. So we as parents, this is in the United States,
You're saying
and
at home, like in their
at
home, not
home,
not taken from
90.
their home. It's in the
Exactly.
home before anything else happens. It could be happening from a family member or somebody they know. I don't want to create a story, but like school tutor, somebody, friend of the family, the
Absolutely.
neighbor. Okay. So what was the number?
92%, 90
92%
over
are from
90,
that.
yeah, over 90% are familial. It's a family member. It's important to have a relationship with your children where they can very comfortably come to you and say, "Dad, Mom, I don't like it when you tell me to hug Uncle Harry because he touches me weird and he says we should have secrets outside of you." Or, this babysitter says that we should trust her more than you, and she's showing us pornography now. Or, this tutor, I was at this tutor's house, and he was touching my leg underneath the chair. Whatever it was, these are things where you need a healthy relationship, communication with your children, where
Right.
you're their 911. They can come to
So your
you when
antennas
something
are
feels
up
out of
and
place.
clear and I'd say, I actually did a like an online class recently from Little Lawyers. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's out of
Mhm,
Canada.
mhm.
Um and I did it because of all the stuff that's going on now, and I just want to make sure that I have an 11-year-old daughter. I don't know if you knew that, but it's important to me to make sure, my antennas are up all the time. She's not always with me, so that makes it very difficult. But when she's with me, or when I'm, picking her up from school, whatever, just have those antennas to be ready to pick up on things if there is anything. And one of the reasons I did the Little Warriors course was I wanted to learn how to start to have that conversation with her without planting seeds in her head that other people might be bad. Because then, you don't talk about uncle or grandpa or this or the neighbor, and then nothing happened. And now they're thinking, should I be afraid of this person? And then it gets weird,
Mhm.
right? So I'd love to hear your, you said it's in the book Sound of Freedom. So there's actual, like, there's steps in there of what families can do to have these conversations with their kids. So you laid it out in
Absolutely.
the book. Okay. So I'm going to
And
send
and
people to the
a
book, which is linked in the show notes as well.
and beyond that, a lot of people say, "Okay, when my child hits puberty, then I'll have that conversation with him. I'll have that conversation with her." No,
Too late.
if they're already 10 years old, the statistical probability is that they've likely been in a situation where they were compromised in some way. The 1 out of every 5 boys go through a period where they're sexually abused at some point, and 1/4 of them is under the age of 10 years old in their own homes. And so if you're not having a conversation when they're 5 or 6, then it might be too late. And so parents are like, "Well, what kind of conversation?" Well, super simple. We have these things where we go to these high risk neighborhoods and orphanages and places in safe houses, et cetera, where children are that have a higher chance of being abused in some way. And
Mhm.
we have these little games, and you can do this with your kids. Go to the store, go to the Walmart, get a big, huge poster or some paper that you can roll out and cut it to the size of your children, their head to toe, or have them cut it out, and then have them take turns outlining each other. And so now they have their body that's there, and then have them color their clothes and everything else, and then have a conversation about what parts of their body are off limits. What
Mhm.
parts are private? What parts, do not show, do not touch, do not shoot, do not touch, unless this is your mom giving you a bath or whatever. But these are private things that unless a child has that understanding, they don't know. They don't
Right.
know. And then they're being controlled through fear and guilt and shame by somebody who pushes those limits on them.
Right. And almost like that, once the person victimizes a child or does something, acts out on him or talks to him or whatever it is in an abusive way like that, now they're playing offense and your child doesn't have any defense. So
Exactly.
what these conversations are doing is just giving them a little bit of a, hey, if something happens, now your kid can red flag it, go to you a lot quicker than this becoming a thing that could have happened for days, weeks, months, years, right? You get to it the second it happened and it's minimized, hopefully, and taken care of and never happens again. Um, can you talk about, I don't know what your involvement is with the FBI, but you said like obviously a lot of this stuff because of the day we live in with social media and video games, and then everybody's like online gaming now is the big thing. Um, and a lot of kids are. You talked about, oh, this boy makes a friend with someone, another gamer. They have a gamer tag that is like seems normal. The avatar of the character looks normal, but it's really like a 45-year-old guy in Ecuador or something, right? Or
Mhm.
wherever, or somewhere in the States, doesn't matter. And they're trying to work, what is it, groom the kid right into something or do something, say something, for extortion. But what is the FBI monitoring these games, or do the games have to go to the FBI and say, "Oh, there's some activity here"? Like, how is it? How do we even know that there is a level of protection, or do we just not let our kids play these games at all?
Very seldom does the deeper grooming happen on the game. Usually what happens, because a lot of the games are watching there, and because there's some open information there, it's somebody who is just saying, "Hey, I'm Mary and I'm 13, and hey, you're doing great on this game." Just some kid type conversation, and hey,
Right.
we should have a conversation off the game. Now, as soon as they move the conversation over to something like Signal, or over to something more WhatsApp. WhatsApp is super common. And they move the conversation. Now the conversation is private between your child and the perpetrator,
Hmm.
with your child thinking that it's another kid. And so teaching your kids, hey, anytime any stranger, it doesn't matter if you've been playing with this stranger for a month and you think it's some other kid that's your same age, if they ever want to move the conversation over to something like WhatsApp, then what I ask is, first, let's together do a FaceTime video with them and their parents and you and us on the WhatsApp, just so we can make sure that everything is good. That's
Yeah.
super simple, and
That's
that
usually a
that
red flag. I've had people try to do that to me, whether it's just a weird thing in business where they're trying to, get your information or fish an email. They always try to get you off to something weird that I don't use, like WhatsApp or whatever. And it's like,
Mhm.
just if you're a business in the States, just call me on my phone, right? We don't have to do this. But yeah, there's definitely red flags, for sure. And like you said, have that conversation first as a family. I want to give some love to your other book, which is news to me. Um, and it is called what? Your Infinite Wealth, correct?
Yeah, your
Holding it up.
infinite wealth, the golden age of conscious capitalism, and
Okay.
the financial liberation series. And a lot of people ask, well, Paul, why a business book after your whole passion is child liberation and liberating humanity? What is a business book? Well, the truth is, number one, I've got as much credibility in the business space as I do in the child rescue space. I had a very successful company in my early 20s that helped
Mhm.
people overcome anxiety, depression, PTSD, addictions, childhood trauma, etc. I sold that at 29 years old for $20 million. That's the money I used to invest in The Sound of Freedom. That's the money I used to invest in real estate, build another very successful real estate investment fund, etc. But the key is this. I recognized, after 10 years of doing undercover work in the darkest places of humanity, I recognized that the common thread with traffickers wasn't earrings in their noses and tattoos on their necks. The common thread was arrogance and greed and lust and unhealed personal childhood trauma. And this was common across the board. And I recognize that a lot of the problems that we're having in the world today come from how we treat each other in the boardroom, that how we treat each other in business. If we see the world as a dog eat dog world, as a scarcity mentality where I have to take in order for me to succeed and somebody else loses, if I see my employees as subservient to me in any way and as a commodity that helps me make money, then that's going to transfer over into my personal life as well. When I take a woman from a divine feminine to an object in pornography and then start going down that addictive road, these are all things that contribute to the negativity that creates child trafficking, as well as wars and domestic abuse, et cetera. And I recognize that we're never going to fix the problem of child trafficking by just pulling children out of hell.
Mhm.
We've got to pull the hell out of humanity. And
Amen
so
to
I
that.
have
Yes,
I
sir.
have a series of books that talks about that, everything from healthy relationships to personal health, et cetera. And this is on financial health, and your infinite wealth is aligning your pursuit of your financial goals with with the with the moral principles that are going to help you be a better husband, a better father, a better grandfather, a better everything, that are going to contribute to a better world and take away from these behaviors that are harming humanity as a whole.
Well, I appreciate you bringing that up because the show Mic'd Up, the reason I started this is to help inspire people to be brave and bold in pursuit of their dreams. And then it became more about leveling up in life. So wherever they are now, they want to get a next step ahead, next step ahead. And the best way to do that is to have people on the show like yourself, experts who've actually done it, and then can give one, two, three actionable things. We got about an hour of time together. So it's, you're not going to have 1,000 things to do, and nobody can do 1,000 things to fix. You got to start with one, two, or three steps. So I like people to walk away from these conversations with just, a couple things that they can really work on and apply, take action on, and be better for it. And that's what fuels me up. That's why I get excited to do these conversations. So, a lot of the people tuning in are entrepreneurs, business folks, like, looking to level up their mindset. So I think your book is going to really serve that audience. But at the same time, what's going on in the world right now and everybody knowing about, the Epstein Files came out, as I mentioned at the top of the show or when we started talking. Um, what that did is it raised the awareness again. Sound of Freedom a couple years ago, a lot of people got behind that because they wanted to expose it, and then it kind of a lot of people turtled up. Now the files come out, and we're seeing all the people involved, and we still don't know what we don't know, but there's still a lot that needs to happen. And so I think I don't care who you are, you can be a school teacher, a podcaster, a business owner, have your own foundation. Humanity is under attack right now, and it's been in the shadows for a long time, but I feel like the light is finally shining on it. And as you and I know, light always wins, because the dark corner of your house, maybe there's an insect hiding there we don't know about, but the second you can put the flashlight on them, they're out of there, right? You either can get them or they leave. So what we're trying to do here today is shine the light on it, but have actionable steps. So that's what the child trafficking side of it, but also with the mindset shift. So I want you to talk about the shift in consciousness that people need to have so they can kind of dive into what your new book talks about. And then I do want to come back and kind of talk about the files and what you feel about that, because I haven't been able to talk to other than a friend or two, since it's such a touchy topic, about the Epstein files. And most people don't have the understanding that you would have behind it. So I'd love to save a
Absolutely.
couple minutes for that. But talk more about the shift in consciousness that your book
I
is
I
helping people with.
I will do that for sure. So first of all, first things first, your your relationship with money itself makes all the difference. If you deep down inside think that we live in a zero sum world, meaning for you to make $100 million, 100 million has to come out of the pockets of other people who could possibly use it. If
Right.
you think that, if we you think we live in that type of a world, you're going to sabotage your own success. And the problem comes from a lot of economics books. The very definition of economics is the division of scarce resources, which is a fallacy. There's enough resources in this world where every one of us could have all the food we could ever eat, all the clothes we could ever wear, all the cars we could ever drive.
Right.
The problem is that lot of people believe in this world of scarcity. And in this energy of scarcity, rather than an energy of abundance, we do business deals, traffickers sell children, whatever it is, because of the fact that this thing is something that can make them more money than something else. And they take away their moral conscience and decide, okay, well, it's okay if I just hurt a few people in my process. It's okay if I destroy part of the world in the pollution that I'm doing. It's okay if I take advantage of these customers here, as long as it justifies the end of making money. No, it doesn't. You can truly create a win-win-win-win. And I talk about how, whether it was the investment in the Sound of Freedom movie and creating a true win for humanity as a whole, and the awareness that it was there, or in the building of my company on anxiety and depression, where a lot of our customers, they couldn't even leave their house because their anxiety or their depression was so bad, or they couldn't fly on a plane, or they couldn't go on in their business meetings effectively, they couldn't speak in front of people, whatever it was, because of this anxiety. And yes, they were going to pay us a few $1,000s for a personal coach to get over that. But I was going to help them 2 months later. We had a 97% success rate in helping them fully break free of all of these challenges. Now they could earn $3,000 or $4,000 a month more than they could before. So it's a true win-win-win. So thinking
Mhm.
about every single business deal that you do, everything that you're creating, asking yourself, how can this be a win for myself? How can it be a win for others? How can it be a win for my employees all the way around? It's also important to understand that just being a philanthropist and just giving away that disrupts the flow as well. You may have something powerful and that you can contribute to the world, but if you don't present it in a way that creates value coming back, then it's a disservice as well. I had knowledge and information about what child trafficking was, and I could just, throw that out and put it in people's face and see, look, all these horrible people. Or I could say, okay, what can we do to present it in a way where people are going to want to see it? And that's what we did with the Sound of Freedom movie. We only spent 14 million on the film, and it's done over $300 million between box office and online sales.
By
More
the
than
way,
that,
I'm gonna jump in. 99% positive Rotten Tomatoes rating
that's great.
from the fans. I know this is a whole nother could be a whole nother podcast episode that it got grilled a lot by certain
Of
certain
course it
review
did.
sites and whatever. And there's a lot of I was not happy to see how that was kind of handled, but we kind of expected it when it came out. I say we, I wasn't a part of the film, but like the fans of the movement,
Of course.
that were excited and kind of marching into the theaters, excited to see a movie that's doing good in the world. And by the way, you said 14 million was the budget.
Yeah, yeah, and we
The
did
film was
300
done
plus million.
so well. The film was made so well. I know I talked about in the first interview. I studied film in school. I love film directing and writing. I mean, it was made as good as any film I've ever seen as far as, the technical that happened, the acting, the casting, everything. Uh, it was just really done at a high level. Angel's been making great movies since, and they've have been doing a lot of great things. So sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to say 99% from the fans, the people who actually right, who we care about.
Exactly. Now I'm gonna take a few minutes and touch on a subject that, um, I didn't clear it with you first, but you stop me if it's like but I think this is important. This is
Yeah.
this is one of my keys to success,
Hmm.
and it's important that people open their eyes to some things that I believe are changing over the next couple years, and that responsible adults and business owners everywhere need to understand. So let me go back. I'm going to talk about mental health because I believe that is part of the contribution to everything from domestic abuse to trafficking, et cetera, et cetera. So,
Hmm.
um, back 35 years ago, my company that helped people overcome anxiety, depression, PTSD, addictions, childhood trauma, helped them change the negative habit patterns of thought that were creating those problems in the first place. Now, the challenge that we have is this: our 95% of our life is run by our subconscious mind. And so if something is deeply embedded in our subconscious mind, sometimes that's coming out. It's coming out in anger issues or in addictions and things like this, and we don't even know where it's coming from. Now, when we're children, 0 to 8, 9 years old, our mind is in a state of hyper neuroplasticity. It's
Yeah.
very, very
It's a
impressionable. Mean
sponge.
exactly, meaning you can learn 3 or 4 languages at the same time, but then also if something happens in that impressionable age, if your uncle abuses you, or even something simple, your dad says that you look ugly and blue, whatever it is,
Yeah.
those things get deeply embedded. If you imagine this gold bar is your subconscious mind, and in neuroplasticity as a child, it's in flow state. And it's easy to get things deeply embedded in it. And then it hardens after 10, 11, 12 years old. So now it takes 21 days to create a new habit. But even
Hmm.
then, you're not getting deep down in, you're just kind of chiseling away at the surface to try to change the form of this gold bar. Now, this is something that takes weeks and even years to be able to try to get down to these childhood trauma things or these deep-seated emotions that a lot of times we don't know where it's coming from. We're thinking, "Man, why am I always just angry at these, or why am I nervous in this situation, or why do I have this addiction that keeps coming back? Why? Well, a lot of them are coming from things that are deeply embedded. And so for 10 years, the company I worked with, we had cognitive behavioral therapy, cognitive restructuring, trying to help people change those deep embedded things. 10 years ago, actually about 15 years ago, I was not Paul Hutchinson. I was Paul effin Hutchinson. I had built a multi-billion-dollar company. I had a house that had 10 bathrooms, 8 private suites, 10 I had seven fireplaces, 3
Hmm.
kitchens, a basketball court in my basement, and I had 2 of my undercover operators who I had worked with years before called me up and they said, "Paul, do you trust us?" And I said, "Yeah, I trust you with my life." Literally, when I did those missions, they said, "You need to come to this healing retreat." I said, "I don't need to heal. I'm Paul F. and Hutchinson. Everybody wants to
Right.
be me." They said, "No, you do. You're on your second marriage. You're headed for a divorce, and your kids don't talk to you. You think that happiness is going to come from one more car, one more party,
Hmm.
one more girl." And they brought me into this experience that completely changed my life in every way. This is way before the movie, before
Yeah.
anything. It completely transformed everything. And they introduced me to some doctors and some scientists that were working on the proper protocol of the proper use of psychedelics when it comes to trauma therapy, anxiety, depression, PTSD, and addictions. The reason I bring this up is this: you will see over the next 2 years the laws changing in the US, where these things that have been deemed as Schedule 1 drugs for the last 50 years will now loosen up those laws. And I'm not a fan whatsoever of somebody going to a rave party and getting high with their friends on mushrooms. This is not only a
Right.
bad idea, it's dangerous. However, do your own research and you can ask more questions if you want to go deeper. The power of these tools used correctly with the right facilitators and the right environment, we can get 10 and 20 years worth of therapy done in
Wow.
24 to 48
Is
hours.
the only way to do it to be in that state? You need it just those call them
There's
drugs, whatever it
no,
might
I
be that
and
you're
yeah,
on.
I don't call them drugs because
Right.
here's what's important. Here's
What's
what's
the right word though?
just
That's why I said that. I want to
I
use the
I
right
I actually
terminology.
use the word medicines because people use the words drugs as they associate them with
Medicine.
cocaine
All
and
right.
whatever, but
Right.
understand this, and this is the distinction. There's never been a case of overdose with psilocybin, not one ever in history. There's never been a case of addiction, not one ever in history. So we sit here and say, why were these things deemed Schedule 1 drugs, thrown in
Hmm.
the same category as cocaine as if they're dangerous? They're not at all. Literally, psilocybin is safer than table sugar.
Wow.
It's and people are like, wow, that's crazy. So to throw them in the same category, we have a 95% success rate in helping entrepreneurs break free of addictions to alcohol, cocaine, heroin, etc., using different forms of the proper use of different types of psychedelics. And so we have
Psychedelics. Yeah.
now yeah, and they can
Wow.
range from everything from ayahuasca to psilocybin to ketamine to
Yeah.
there's a bunch in between, but I would encourage entrepreneurs who are struggling with addictions, who are struggling with ego type things, or struggling with anxiety or depression or childhood trauma, whatever, to take a deeper dive. We have a lot of information on liberatinghumanity.com because I've been working with guys like RFK for the last 10 years. He's been a
Hmm.
beautiful example of taking down things in big pharma, and he's going to help decriminalize
Hmm.
the proper use of these tools. So that was a massive that it was the biggest part of my personal growth and transformation over the last 30 years.
Wow. That was huge, man. I'm glad that we went there. I wish we would have went there earlier because there's so much more I want to talk about. And I know we're limited. But so that happened. And I knew your backstory. I think we touched on it a little bit in the first interview, but that you were uber successful. I mean, highest level of success. And then I knew you got into doing like the undercover stuff. And that was a very interesting. And I mean, just to kind of walk away from that lifestyle to go into it. But I didn't know what was going on at home, right? And it's not something, if you didn't bring it to the table, are we going to dive into that? But I have worked with people, clients, interviewed people where you kind of see, okay, there's this level of success in them, but you can tell some of their characteristics or the way they act or the way that they act in certain situations, something seems a little off. And there's likely trauma there, right? And I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychologist, but you can tell they need to get that figured out because do a lot of great, and some of their personality is great, but you can see it and it doesn't matter how much whatever numbers in their bank account doesn't matter at the end of the day if they're struggling with something that's behind the scenes that we don't know about. And so what you're saying is with these psychedelics or whatever, the different retreats you can go on is a mindset, a mentality, and is almost like a reset button. It sounds like for the soul,
Yeah, we call our retreats the rebirth. We used
rebirth.
to call them a
Yeah.
transformational retreat, and then a bunch of our people came and said, "This is so much more than a transformation. This is a full rebirth
Right.
experience." And just leaving the old and yes, there are tools that we teach beyond those. I teach some deep meditative techniques and some breath work
Hmm.
techniques as well that are very effective in helping people come from their head to their heart space and break free of some of those addictions and
And this is
childhood
all on your
trauma.
website, right?
Mhm.
Liberating Humanity. So, guys, check that out. And I just want to make sure I got this right on the timeline. So you had those two operators. You said when you say operators, what do you mean by that? They were on your team. What were their roles?
Yeah, yeah, they were other guys who did undercover missions. Andy did
Okay.
23 missions with me, and Jimmy had done 13 when they
And they
when
noticed that, look, your home life was kind of in a weird spot. Didn't have
yeah,
a good relationship with your kids. You were maybe you could have been on the cover of Forbes and looked good, but internally you were struggling. So they noticed it and wanted to help you out. You did that, but then after that, you did the missions, the 70 missions. Then Son of Freedom was made based on a lot of what was going on in that part of your life. Now you promoted the movie. Now you have this new book out that's about business mindset and clearing that all up. And now you're kind of circling back to what allowed you to do these great things, which was that retreat and that rebirth in yourself. And so you're kind of
exactly.
coming back saying, I don't want this to just be a one-time experience for me. I want to help out humanity with this.
Exactly. And that's this my
Bingo.
biggest passion now is in helping entrepreneurs and
Yeah.
business leaders become the very highest version of themselves that they can be, release everything that doesn't serve them. This isn't, in the beginning, we just brought in guys who were operators, a Green Beret who had done 300 missions in Afghanistan, was already dealing with PTSD, and one undercover mission with us, seeing a menu with
Mhm.
children's faces and prices that just screwed them up. They just couldn't deal with life anymore.
I
Well,
couldn't even imagine.
then
Yeah.
then we moved on to women who had dealt with severe childhood sexual abuse. Now I work almost exclusively with what I call the tip of the umbrella, big influencers, and we've even had royalty come in and world leaders and entrepreneurs, business leaders who if we can help them break free of everything that doesn't serve their highest purpose
Mhm.
and step into that leadership role of leading from the heart, then we'll help millions of people.
Yeah, that positive energy is contagious. And that's one thing I've noticed with a lot of the great entrepreneurs that I've had the privilege of interviewing, is the thing I get excited about is purpose, right? The word purpose. It's just not a rah-rah thing. It's when you really look at somebody, they're not driven typically. You start a new business, an entrepreneur has an idea, it's bigger than what was the revenue year 1, year 5, year 10, right? Like, that's all important, but when you really get into understanding why they put those late nights in and just drove at it and really had this amazing vision, it's the bigger purpose of what that business allows them to do with themselves and family, and how they're actually making a dent in this universe, and you see the great innovators are all thinking bigger picture. They're not thinking about one product and how it's going to make a one-time improvement. It's what it's going to do for humanity, and that's what gets me excited to talk to you because you're a bigger picture guy and how many people we can help. And we our days on planet Earth are numbered. We don't know how many days we get, but we do know that every day we have the opportunity to do something great with it. And that's what I always talk about. Be great and be grateful. And I'm grateful for people like you being a part of my life and being here to share this with the mic'd up audience. We got like 7 minutes left. I do have to give a little love to Social Chameleon, our podcast agency. This episode is brought to you by Social Chameleon. You press record, we handle the rest. It is podcasting done for you. If you're a founder, an author, an entrepreneur, a lot of the people we're talking about here, who wants to grow your authority and grow relationships through podcasting, this is what you want to do. Go to socialchameleon.us. I actually have the QR code right here on the screen, so make it super easy for you. From production to guest booking, distribution, we handle it all. It's podcasting done for you. Go to socialchameleon.us. All right, final 5 minutes. Bada
Final
bing,
5
bada
minutes.
boom.
Just connect me
know.
with those guys. Seriously,
Let's do
I
it.
want to connect
Social
with Social Chameleon. That's
All right.
great.
Well, we're gonna do that. We're gonna do that. I got your phone number, so we're gonna talk. Paul, I hate the fact that we kind of rushed through your new book because that could have been the whole episode. Talking about
it'll come out in 2 months. We can get back on.
We'll
later.
get you back on the
That'd
show.
be good.
But what was really cool about what you said there is that when you're doing business and you feel good about it, more people want to do business with you. It's that simple. It's like when you're when you're not desperation breath, right? When you got something that you know can help someone, you sit in front of them, you're gonna offer to them with grace, with excitement, and then they're gonna want to do it. So and then when that happens, someone else looks and goes, "What are you guys up to? I want to get involved with that," and that's just good business. So I'm interested in reading your book there, and I'd love to have you back on so we can talk about all that, the prosperity factors. I'm looking at it, the mathematics of infinite wealth. There's so many cool things, the different perspectives of your new book. Last couple minutes, I've been following the Epstein Files very closely because it's making it hard for me just as an American right now to trust anybody, the DOJ, the president, past presidents, anybody who tells you anything. It's like you got to really do your own homework on it to see what the truth is. And the scary part is it seems like I don't know if we're ever going to know the real truth, but we want to have people held accountable for actions, right? So the DOJ right now, it's crazy to me, and I just want your thoughts on it. That so far, I don't think anybody's been arrested that's been in the files, and I think they have a lot of things that's arrestable offenses, if you ask me. What are your thoughts on how people are being protected that are in the files? And what really was crazy is they were supposed to redact a lot of the victims, and they unredacted them, so they exposed victims' names, but they redact people who are sending and receiving emails from Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and all these other operators that are horrible, despicable human beings, and they're protecting them. What's your thought? Why is that going on? And what do you make of all this?
It makes me mad as hell is what it makes me. And
Yeah.
here's the thing. You're exactly right. First of all, a few months ago, we end up hearing, oh, there are no files. We don't have anything. Oh, really? And then 3 million of them show up. And of those 3 million, they're heavily redacted with all of these key names of key individuals that are blacked out. But the list of the victims was wide out in the open. Are you kidding me?
And Pam Bondi and Patel won't even turn in court when they're, the victims are there looking for support and help to get some resolution to things that happened in their life. They're there to get a little bit of closure on things and wouldn't even turn and address it. So I don't know what's going on, but
we have to demand transparency. That's the only way it's going to happen.
I want to know what we can do. Like, power of the people, right? Voice of the voiceless, power of the people. We got to figure out, if you can help me figure out what we can do the American people deserve justice, to know that these horrible things don't just happen and get brushed away. Because if that's the case, then we're living in some extreme dark times, which I know we are.
We are.
But we want to be able to say, okay, well, if there's going to be dark times, there has to be a light that follows it, and we need some justice. And there's the DOJ. We need to see something happen. And, what scares me is any critical thinker, any logical thinker can assume that the reason we're not seeing it means what? That they're protecting the people,
They're protecting
probably
them.
largely themselves against exposure. If not, they would have been out. They would have been listed. They would have been, right? So it makes you really wonder. And look, I'm not into conspiracies, but a lot of the stuff that was said that people looked like they were crazy eyed and these guys are nuts. A lot of it's
Are
coming
coming true.
true. A lot of it's coming true.
Absolutely.
So all I'm asking people to do right now is pay attention. You got to know what's going on and see how you can help out, whatever that looks like. I think more awareness is really doing a big thing because it's kind of forcing them not to be able to sweep it under the rug as long as they have. And if you look
Yeah.
at, and I'm sorry, I'm riffing here,
No, you're
but
good.
like,
We're
but
talking the same language.
but brother, Jeffrey Epstein, it's so ridiculous that his first time he had any sentencing or whatever, uh, he, I think he went for one. It was like one situation, like one girl, right, underage girl, or and prostitution for one situation, and he got, I think, his hand slapped, and he got out, and he was on like probation or whatever. He wasn't even jailed, I think, the first time. Then the second time, they gave him like the most minimal situation he could have been in.
Yeah, he
Um,
got to leave the jail anytime he wanted.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and based on what he really did, it wasn't even close. So obviously,
Mm.
there's people who think he's a spy and all this stuff, and I think a lot of that can hold truth because we see, now we have some of these files. So I'll just leave it with that. I want the audience to look into it, be educated about it, check out Liberating Humanity, the website, your new book. Sound of Freedom's a book that I knew
Mhm.
about and I wanted to talk about. So not only is the movie great, I'm looking forward to reading your book. And the most important thing we can do is be proactive, right? Reactive, yes, we want to save kids from bad situations, but what you talked about is super important. We want to prevent things from happening before they happen. And I really appreciate you shining a light on this whole thing. Last words for you before we jump.
I'm just super grateful, Mike. Just keep on spreading the truth because that's the only way that we're going to win is just shining the light in the darkness. So the light doesn't have to be afraid of the darkness. The
Mhm.
light just shows up and the darkness dissipates. And so all we need to do to fix this, whether it's Epstein or anything else, is to continue to shine a light. Shine a light
Yes.
and expose the darkness for what it is so that we can protect the children.
I'll tell you what I've done a lot more recently than I haven't done in a long time is get back in the Bible. And so that's personally how I'm choosing
Yep.
to, because if I want to have a bigger flashlight, I got to be reconnected and recharge my own battery. So,
Boom.
as I said, brother, be great. You're already doing that at the highest of high levels. Be grateful. I know you got a lot of gratitude in your heart. And anybody who's tuning in, remember to be kind. That's one thing we ask you to do. It doesn't matter who you are, how much money you have, how much money you don't have. Kindness is free. It's easy. You can be kind to someone at the grocery store. Open a door for a stranger as they're walking into the store. Oh no, you're going to be second in line to cash out now because they're in front of you. Just be kind and don't expect anything in return. God bless you, brother. Love you, and
He
we'll
does.
talk offline. Appreciate you.
All right. Thanks, Mike.